When I was like 23, I watched a man wave his hand over a woman and induce a full body orgasm that lasts about 45 minutes. And when I first saw that, I was like, okay, that man's a charlatan. These women are actors.
Yeah.
I was like, pull the curtain back, wizard. Like I was just like, no fucking way. Is that real? No way. Like what a rational response, right? And yeah, it's completely real.
Hey, I'm Jen, host of the Open Bedroom podcast, where you'll find topics of sex, dating, relationships, non-monogamy, and more. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Open Bedroom podcast. Today I have Rob Kancler on. For over 2 decades, Rob has delved into the vast realm of human sexual potential, intertwining modern sexology, neuroscience, ancient teachings, and practical experiences. Through this journey, he's uncovered a pervasive crisis: the prevalent lack of physical intimacy and widespread misunderstandings about sexuality. Rob owns a program called The Men of Substance, and today we're talking to the men, talking to the dudes. Rob said these are his people. And today we're going to dive into how to have a healthy sexual relationship with yourself and with others. We'll talk more about the Men of Substance program and what is it to be a man of substance. Rob, I'm going to kick it
Beautiful.
over to you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm happy to be here with you and looking forward to seeing what happens.
Me
Cool.
too. Tell our audience a little bit about you. Who are you?
Well, a little bit about me. Something that comes to mind, even just hearing your little intro, which chef's kiss, by the way, beautiful. You have a very resonant presenter's voice. It's nice. I imagine people love listening to it. But anyways, yeah, one of the things that came to mind when I was listening to you is that it seems like a huge percentage of the male population has never had an authentic, honest conversation about the subject, and the subject that's so central and matters so much to these guys. They have never had an honest, open conversation about the topic. There's so much weirdness, and when men talk about it, there's this kind of like macho flex of like, oh yeah, yeah, dude, or like it turns into a sense of like, oh, that's too personal, or don't ask me about that, or like that's inappropriate in this context. In every single context, with their close male friends, with the people that they really share their lives with, that this central fundamental part of who we all are and where we all came from and what we all care about is something that we don't talk about. And that sense of it being so off limits creates huge blind spots in people's awareness, where sex is a thing that like more or less everybody will say that they like sex. And it's not something that we talk about. We don't learn from other people except in a context that's super weird, super weird. And it's such a hush hush thing that's kind of shrouded in ego and all of these kind of weird influences from our kind of religious underpinnings, and obviously pornography and the kind of undertones in Hollywood and in the movies and TV that we all grew up in, that this has indoctrinated us. And I think people are operating from the way that I think about it is like we are a part of these lineages, right? Like this is true in any domain. If we're looking at like, music or dance or whatever, or something like science and forms of education, that we come from lineages, right? We all come from these lineages. And I think that the lineages that we are plugged into as it relates to sex are kind of shitty, and they don't actually translate to people having meaningful sex or meaningful sex lives in the greater arc of their experience as a human being. And that's super interesting, right? Like just to think about the lineages as well as the legacy, like what are we participating in, getting passed around and perpetuating, and our kids inheriting and all that. And how can we connect to two different things? So I think about my work often from two different directions. One of them, you brought it up in our little preamble, is our instincts, our body intelligence, the part of us, our, let's say, our intuitive mind, and how that is different than cognition and the thinking mind. And so many people think their way through sex. They're not informed by something that has so much more processing capacity and if you talk to women, say this all the damn time, that they're like, oh, there was just something about that one guy. Like he knew, he had the magic touch, right? It's like, what is that? What is that? And this is something that I've been really interested in investigating for the past, let's say, 10 years, is like, what the hell is that? And is it something that just you have it or you don't? And is it something that you can teach? And what of these different traditions, to go back to the thing about lineages, what have these different traditions been saying about these more esoteric concepts of transmission and how you can actually get information in people's bodies and in people's relationships, and how these different intelligences are playing, like the thinking mind cognition thing that we're really keen on in this culture. And how does that differ from where you might actually be able to solely access the most meaningful experiences that you could have that you might not even know of, but you will be guided there if you understand the current to follow. And in addition to this, that the instincts, intuition, body intelligence piece, we have these other lineages that people, when they start to explore them, if they can find an accessible way in, are so rich. Like there's spiritual traditions and cultural traditions around the world that have been deep in sexual practice and have worked some things out that are very worthwhile to understand, and are more or less just an articulation of nature and a development of a culture and body of practice and understanding that has been very helpful in my life. And there's so many like there's big things too, but little things that it's like, once you get it, it's like, oh my God, I'll never unsee that. That's with me. It changes the game and the way that we might approach something that I think a lot of people just take for granted and end up in their routine. And we all know where that goes, right? Like the statistics tell the story, is like doing this routine sex thing doesn't really work out. It doesn't work. Like one framework that I use in my teaching is this idea of a sexual operating system. Everybody has one. And just based on the stats, if we just look around, the sexual operating system most people are using doesn't work very well. It's like we have people complain about mismatched libido and the loss of spark over time, and going into more concrete, observable things that, like, it's kind of getting into different territory here, but I'll follow the thread where so many women report pain and numbness during intercourse, and they're not interested in sex, and they perceive themselves to be inorgasmic and get really addicted to vibrators and their Hitachi wand, and that's how they can come, and all this sort of stuff. And going further into that, like the real clinicians that have their hands on and in women's pelvises on a regular basis report this kind of epidemic of fascial adhesions and dry and dead nerves and prolapsed uteruses and urethras and severe tearing during childbirth. And, just so much is going on. If we just look at fundamental pelvic health care, and my perception from like really looking at this in a pretty rigorous way is I think a lot of that has to do with our sexual behavior, as well as the psychological, emotional, energetic impact on the body by the way that we inhabit ourselves and our belief systems and our identity, and things like sexual shame and conditioning, and how all of that lives in us and is super fucking limiting to our lives and our relationships. And to kind of frame that in the thing that we were talking about before we started rolling here, is I see this as a fundamental integrity issue. And what I mean by that is not particularly from the lens of integrity, meaning our morals and ethics or whatever. Etymologically and historically, the word integrity has a lot more to do with being intact and being whole, like a sense of wholeness, right? And I think that if you, and I work with men a lot, and I'm really in the trenches with men so much more with women. And when I say this, it's often super affirming and sometimes confronting for men, of just like, this is fundamental. Like how could you expect yourself to feel like you're in right relationship with who you are and your heart of hearts and what actually matters and your manhood itself, if you're not tending to this thing that, like, from the time that you were 12 years old, there was so much excitement and enthusiasm, and then in the natural progression of, let's say, our quote unquote sexual development, things just get confusing and isolated, and there's shame, and we have no idea how to create the sexual experiences and sexual relationships that we're actually looking for. And then there's just like all these layers of crap that stack on from what is usually like this seed of goodness and innocence and curiosity and intrigue and like aliveness that is just like, oh my God, like like the budding sexuality of young human beings is so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then layers of crap, just like all of this shit. And it's not just like taking on it's also like the incompetence, the fundamental incompetence that, and I think this is such a big thing for men. When men don't feel competent, it is crushing in any area of their life. So when it comes to women, when it comes to sex, when it comes to female pleasure, when it comes to them really expressing the full ranges of their natural sexuality, it is devastating that men do not feel competent in like realizing, actualizing what they want, what they're looking for, the thing that would make them feel proud of themselves, and like they're showing up in the world and they're contributing and they're a part of the legacy that they want to hold for future generations. When it comes to sex, almost nobody has that. For a lot of people, I think nobody that they've ever even met has that. I'll say that again. I think for a lot of people, they have never even met someone who is having a great sex life, who is sexually fulfilled. They've never even met somebody like that. That is insane. It is such a fundamental and important part of who we are and what makes a good life. Like if you were to ask anybody, like, hey, is having an awesome sex life a part of the vision that you have for yourself, or especially when you were a teenager, when you were growing up? Mm-hmm. If you just had a magic wand, would you choose ongoing, intense sexual gratification for yourself? There's not a damn person alive that would be like, no, that's not for me. And I think that's not true. There surely are. Like I think there in the margins there are people who might be asexual, but even that, I'm really hesitant of these like typological or identity-based conclusions that people have about who they are sexually, because we're living in hell. We're living in this utterly sick and corrupted world when it comes to our sexuality. And that might sound extreme, but I think it's really true. And the statistics really tell the story. Like if you really look at what is going on in people's relationships, high divorce rates, high multiple divorce rates, increase is in different kinds of dysfunction and prostate cancer. And, the statistics that I've seen recently are like 40% of people in long-term relationships haven't had sex in the past 6 months. 40% of men under the age of 25 report erection issues. Like this is so real. It's like, is nature just broken? Probably not. We're doing something here. And I think it's really worthwhile for people to take this seriously. I've seen how unbelievably affirming and relieving it is when you just like look a man in the eyes and be like, that feeling that this is not okay is right. Take that seriously. Like this matters. This matters. It is important. Your whole life will get better if you figure this fucking thing out, and it's not rocket science.
Okay. Put a pin right there because I want to make my way back to it, but I want to say something first.
Yeah, and interrupt me anytime. I can just go and go. So feel free.
So my experience as a woman has been so many of the things that you've kind of already touched upon. Like I remember my very first experience with my high school boyfriend. We were raised in Christian school, so you can imagine like all the doctrine in there, but also we were both, I think, fairly sheltered. And so there wasn't a ton of this is how people have sex because we watched porn. I mean, we literally just figured it out together. And it was really beautiful. And I was so grateful to have such a wonderful first person to kind of stumble upon and fumble and sort of like figure out how to put our parts together. And then it was like, oh, it went in and let's keep doing it. This is great. So I've had that experience. And then I had 2 husbands where I just recently did a podcast episode that says something like, I think the title is, Are You Still Fucking Like You're 16? And I think a lot of us get stunted. You were talking about like, are you learning? Are you growing? Are you maturing in your sexual game and
Mm.
who you are in your expression as a human? And I realized it, after 20 years of being married, 10 years to two different humans, that all of a sudden I woke up, I was close to 40. I had a revelation like every other woman does going into like perimenopause. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I'm gonna die having had sex in two positions. Like, this cannot be it. This cannot be everything. And then you have this realization. So, the reason I wanted to kind of come back around to where you're at is I feel like a lot of times men are satisfied with this sort of shitty 10-minute sex that gets them off, and they have no idea what's possible
Hmm.
with a woman. And
Yeah.
then it's the woman that in her sometime 30s to 40s has this incredible sexual awakening and goes,
Mm.
oh my God, I had this really weird orgasm thing happen, or I finally had an orgasm for the first time, or I have a friend who told me blah, 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 blah. And it like blows them wide open. And then it
Hmm.
starts them on this adventure with their male partner, or they fucking leave their partner and they go find another person who's had some sexual maturity. So I'm
Hmm.
curious with the men that you work with and the men that you've spoken with, because I'm sure there's a lot of them. When did they finally wake up? Like, when do they realize that they're having sex like they're 16 and it's not pleasing their woman?
Hmm.
And to your point, you realize there's an issue, there's really an issue. If your wife says there's a problem, there's a problem.
Yes. Yeah. I love what you're saying. And I imagine that it's pretty unusual to have such a, let's say, like a supportive and safe feeling, or maybe even loving. You didn't use that word, but like a
Yeah.
loving environment for exploring our budding sexuality. I think that's pretty unusual, especially with just the weirdness that people are living inside of from being exposed to such a wide variety of porn, and a lot of it being really extreme and full of, like degradation and really intense sexual behavior and stuff like that. But yeah, you said some things that are really inspiring and creatively provocative. Um, I, I think we have no idea what we're missing. And I think that a lot of people, even in their ambition to have better sex, they don't even know where to look for the things that would be most fulfilling. And so much of what I have seen in these different pockets of culture, from the more kind of clinical sexological angle and like couples therapy type of context and sex therapists, and then also the neo tantra and kink and BDSM world, that I see a lot of I was going to say misunderstanding, but that's maybe not the most clear language to use. Like the sense of like the information that people are getting, even in these kind of progressive environments, is just putting them in another like limited frame of self misunderstanding. I see this over and over again. And then this is like not unique to sex. It's just like people just keep putting themselves in a box. They're like, oh, let me get out of this box and go into a different box, right? And it's like, how do we stop doing that?
Well, Rob, I feel like the question is really what is possible, because maybe
Yeah.
I don't even understand what
Yeah.
realm you have found
Yeah.
that we should be seeking towards.
Sure. Yeah. So, when I was like 23, I watched a man wave his hand over a woman and induce a full body orgasm that lasts about 45 minutes. And when I first saw that, I was like, okay, that man's a charlatan. These women are actors.
Yeah.
I was like, pull the curtain back, wizard. Like I was just like, no fucking way. Is that real? No way. Like what a rational response, right? And yeah, it's completely real. I've spent a lot of time with that man over the years. This is something that I think a lot of people have no idea about. And this thing that you said, that like men are very satisfied with this, like, two positions. You just fuck for 10 minutes until you ejaculate. And like in the ideal world, she has the orgasm before I do, and rinse and repeat. Anytime that I feel tension or horniness, then like, let's go. press, like let's double click on like fuck exe. And then if I'm being a good feminist, I'll click on foreplay exe first. It's like that's the thing that people are indoctrinated into, right? That's the thing. And um, I'll say that I've gone pretty fucking far into this territory of exploring sex from the angle of like, forget what sex is. Imagine that you're just like an alien who like avatared your way into a human body and you have no idea what this is. You've never interacted with another human being. Like, it is so profound to give yourself the opportunity to have a real experience of being in a body and having something happen that you're not anticipating or going after, but just letting your emergent experience be whatever it is. It can be so profound and so heart opening. Like there's something that I think is it's really cool when people get this, that when you get out of your own way and kind of clear the space and let something emerge, the quality of the sexual experiences that we have, the quality of intimacy, the quality of love flow, and like a deep sense of meaning that can occur when we're not trying is incredible. It's incredible. It's like almost the sense of like, if I don't need to love you or be attracted to you or feel any particular way about you, and I'm just there letting myself have an authentic experience, it is powerful. Like that sense of just like interacting with a woman's body and being like, whoa,
Mhm.
this is a full on thing that's going on inside of me. This like, yes, like that thing. It's like people don't give themselves the space to have that kind of an experience because they're ahead of themselves. They're doing a choreography. They already figured it out and they're missing the gold. They're missing the opportunity for love and intimacy and pleasure and orgasm and orgasmic affect and all kinds of shit that like I've encountered, you know, in the work, we frame it as sex stories from beyond because it's very helpful for people to kind of get like, okay, I've been thinking about this all wrong, right? Like I had an experience with a lover many years ago that was one of the moments where I was like, okay, this forget what sex is business is fucking gold. Was we were laying, do you want a sex
Oh
story from
God,
beyond?
please.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
So I had this experience where I was just laying with a lover and we were just like laying belly to belly, breathing, just feeling each other, almost like on the edge of napping. And this is really trippy. My lips were right up against, I guess, her jugular vein, whatever this is right here on the side. And I could just feel the pulsating river of her blood moving underneath my mouth.
Mm.
And it was like, I started to enjoy that so much in a way that opened into a sexual feeling in my body. There
Mhm.
was this sense of like, in a not thinking way, just feeling like wow, like feeling aroused and turned on and enchanted by her aliveness and the power of this. And not like in a weird way. It was just like so relaxing and natural and sexy, just like being with her heartbeat and with her pulse and the blood flowing through her veins.
Mhm.
And in that moment of like enjoying her, there was this kind of thing that I could only describe as like my body was connected to how much I could enjoy her in her orgasmicness and her her enjoying herself. And something happened that was like an invitation for her to open into a state of orgasm in her blood first.
Mhm.
That there was this sense of like the blood flowing underneath my lips was like, hey, like there was this invitation, and after a certain point of this kind of starting and her body undulating and these, sounds and whimpers and moans starting to come out of her body, she stopped and looked at me and was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And in that moment, I just like we made eye contact, and I was just like, I can tell you later. Do you feel safe enough to just
Yeah.
continue in what we're exploring right now? And I don't even remember if I said that, but it was just kind of this like, are we good? Like, you okay? I don't want to get out of this. Like, we can like debrief another time. And
Yeah.
just in that moment, it was just like, okay, here we go. And um, it just went right back to it, like instantly. It was right there. That information was right there of just like, took maybe 3 to 5 seconds to drop back into that place where it was like primal and like grotesque isn't the right word, but in this like, yeah, like blood and guts and like your life force pulsing and how much I enjoy your primality in your body and how much I enjoy you enjoying yourself as an invitation for a process to happen. And me being really with her in that was a way that she could continue to stay focused on the process and for that thing to be contained. And over the years of me having countless experiences like that, I've mapped a lot of information that has afforded me so much ongoing discovery and something that I can just tell people. And they're like, okay, that is really good to know. Let me try it out. And, over and over and over again, I've had men come back to me and say, not only did that work, but like, have you ever had this sort of an experience? Right. So there's this sense of like there's all of this territory that we could say is like more esoteric or nuanced. But I want to be really clear that like I don't think that this is like magic. It's not, it's something that you can recreate. It's just I love this quote. I don't remember who it's by, but it's something like any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think that in a big way, it's like people think that this is magic because we don't actually understand what sex is. And the one of my former mentors at the beginning of this kind of immersive time that I spent with him, he was like, honestly, let's just assume you have no idea what sex is. It's easier than trying to piece apart what is relevant and what you think you know about sex. Just forget all of it. It's not going to help you. Just get all of that out of the room. Like let's start from a different place.
Quick shout out to Rob Kancler and his Men of Substance work. He helps men to get whole other levels of connection and satisfaction and skills. Here's what a few wives and girlfriends of men who joined his program have said about their man. I have never heard any of my friends talk about having experiences like I'm having since my husband joined the program, says Mary. I've never had orgasms like that before. He unlocked something in me I didn't even know was there, says Kate. Our sexual relationship has always been great, but now it's on a whole nother level, says Ashley. If you're a guy and that speaks to you, or ladies and you want your man to check this out, there's a few ways that you can get started. Take the free Bedroom Compass assessment at the link below to see where you stand with the building blocks of a phenomenal sex life. It makes the teachings way more concrete and actionable. Or you could join Rob's upcoming masterclass this fall and winter and get a taste of the work in real time, moving forward towards opening doors to better, more connected, pleasurable experiences immediately. The link to the masterclass is below. Or if you're ready to dive in, the flagship Men of Substance Blueprint program starts in late October. The next round will be early 2026. Link below to the Blueprint course. Whatever level makes sense for you, there's an easy entry point. Thanks so much. I hope that you enjoyed this episode with Rob Kancler. Can I jump in and just say this is
Hell
giving me a
yeah.
ton of anxiety, and I'm sure it is for our listeners.
What do you
Because,
mean anxiety?
well, okay,
Yeah.
so I had a bunch of things flow through my mind as you've been talking, and one is I
Okay.
had a similar experience to you with Scott, my partner. And I want to talk about it really quick, but
Okay.
I also want to say, we're in an open relationship, and so we have, new experiences pretty somewhat frequently. I don't know. We've
Okay.
had quite a few girlfriends. And right now we have one that I feel like I'm bringing my entire sex toolkit in, like literally in like erotic blueprint shit. I am bringing my fucking toolkit in to
Mhm.
like try things on her body. And it did not go so well. So like I'm visualizing, like I'm turning red because I'm embarrassed. Like I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm like, oh my God, I just need to bring myself. I just need to bring that like intuitive eroticness that I have inside of me that is really easy for me to do with Scott. But with her, it's like she feels like she doesn't know what she's doing. It's maybe because I'm a woman and she's a woman and she's never been with a woman. And so
Mm.
I'm like, let me show you my toolkit of all the sexy, cool things that I can do to you. Let me
Mhm.
do them to you. And I just was like, oh my God, that's what a lot of men do. They do sex at you, they don't do sex with you. And I'm doing sex at her, which is gross. And
Well,
now I
I
feel
let
really
me just
convicted.
like, wow. Yeah, I want to just commend your authenticity and
Oh my gosh.
vulnerability, especially in a public platform. Like that's fucking courageous and super cool and respect. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Is there more about this anxiety or is that kind of hitting the nail on the head and
No, I think you just gave me a really great aha moment. And I think hopefully men and women listening can feel some of that themselves. Like I am bringing the toolkit that I learned along the way or
hmm
that I saw in porn or that I read in a book.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm doing the same things to my new partner and my current partner that I thought worked before that it's not about any of that. What I'm hearing from you, it's lay naked next to someone and put your lips on them and like sink your body. It's not
Yeah.
fucking
It's like
hard. Why do we
it's
make it so hard? We
so this comes back to this thing of like that I was saying before. It's very helpful to lay this out. Like we have sexual culture and we have body intelligence. These are two critically important things. People are mostly having sex from their thinking mind because what they took on from sexual culture and then they, you know, they did a little field research or whatever and they're like, okay, that's I get it. I get it. I got it right. That's the thing I'm going to do now until I die. Is just like that's what's there, right? And it's not that this information is not useful. It is useful, right? Like, but it's not everything. And if you think that that's what's going to get you to the promised land, you're wrong. But it is. It's. I think it's important to validate that, like, yeah, you know some shit about sex. Like that information is helpful. But if you don't hold it in the right proportion of surrender and presence and body intelligence, we're fucked, no pun intended. Or like we're basically this framework is kind of shitty, but I use it anyways and have for years. Is this idea of there's a such thing as limited and limitless sex, and this is like a great frame of just being like, well, is what you're doing limited or not? You know, it can be very helpful when people are like, oh, well, like this is something that I've tried. And it can just be like, okay, well, is that limited? Is it going to actually result into ongoing discoveries and deeper, more expanded experiences and a true sense of that yearning that we feel for our, let's say, our sexuality to resolve our a so there's two layers. There's your sex life, and then there's the process. There's this specific process of arousal, right? Like of arousal, of sexual excitation and how that relates to orgasm ultimately. And I'm just kind of jamming with you here, so feel free to interrupt or whatever. But you know this like this is like on so many girls' bedroom walls and like in Free People magazine or whatever. It says like there's a field out beyond right and wrong. I'll meet you there, or whatever. It's a Rumi quote. Are you familiar with this quote?
Mhm.
So I spun this just like fucking around with a friend one day. I was like, there's a bridge. This is such a ridiculous thing to bring in, just totally going on a limb here. But there's this frame of like there's an intersection between horniness and consciousness that is a bridge to spiritual experiences. I'll
Mhm.
meet you there. You know,
Yeah,
like
I like being met there.
that's where
That's
it's at, right? It's
fine.
like there's a bridge between horniness and consciousness that will
Yeah.
take you to a religious experience.
Fuck yes. Yes, that meeting God. Yeah. Can I
Yeah.
share with you my really cool experience with Scott and syncing bodies like we
Sure,
have?
totally. And I think that I will just accept the inevitability that there's all kinds of bookmarks and threads that we're leaving behind that
I
we are
know.
not getting to so that my mind can relax and just be like, well,
We're just gonna
such is
flow with
life,
it.
right? Such is life.
I loved your sharing about your discovery of being able to sync with your partner from literally just kind of hovering over her vein, right?
Yes.
I noticed with Scott, okay, so one of the things that you said earlier were, are some people just born with this innate ability and magic fingers, right? To like be really good at
The
sex.
magic dick or whatever.
The
Yeah.
magic whatever, right? And when I opened up my relationship and started having adult sexual experiences with men that had some adult, I don't know, they were really good at sex.
Competency.
Competency, sexual competency. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. Um, I noticed I noticed a lot of things, but one was like presence. And so one of the things that was my
Yes.
favorite thing about Scott when we first started dating is I noticed my body would sync with him. Like we would be laying next to each other and I would close my eyes and like every cell in my body would just open like a flood.
Mm.
Like it was
Mm.
like so receptive and it still does now. I can still close my eyes and like immediately sync with his body and it starts to turn me on and it starts to like I can feel his energy moving. One
Hmm.
time we were just kind of touching each other and I started to feel this like thread of electricity along his body and I could like move it and it was zingy.
Mm.
And he was like, "Do you feel that?" And I was like, "Yes." And he
Mm.
was like, "Isn't this incredible? I'm actually feeling it on your body too." And we were like threading electricity through each other's body.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're right. There's this like unbelievable field of meeting God sex that
Yes.
I think most people never even breathe upon, let alone know that
Yes.
it exists. And so,
Yes.
Rob, how do we get them there? How do we get our
Well,
listeners to
if
that
men,
level?
yes, I mean, it's basically, I don't know how to take everything that's in my head and in my body and just download it into other people yet. I'm
Yeah.
working on it, but I don't know how to do that. And these conversations end up being like 50 hours long for me to actually answer the question. But I've spent enough time kind of noticing what I say and what lands for people and getting the feedback of what really worked that it's been distilled down to something that I think is pretty concise that we can get into. Because it's like, how do you even get in the game, right? Like, how do you even get into the context where these kinds of experiences are possible? Right? It's like, should we all just like take a bunch of Molly and acid and just like pop ourselves up? It's like you could try that, but that doesn't even work for a lot of people. And I'm not suggesting recreational psychedelic use for people who don't really have a grounded approach to that. And just to say, I don't even know why we're going into this direction, but like it's real. It's real. You buy Molly and it's like laced with something too. So that's a whole nother can of worms to get into. I don't think it's necessary for people to go this route of like, I got to, blow myself open with psychedelics or whatever so that I can access this.
Okay.
The fundamental thing, the first thing that people need to understand is embodied safety. People don't get that the thing that they think is their sexual response is not their sexual response. It is a misunderstanding of the arousal process being laminated to a dysregulated body. There's this sense of like, I crave sexual release as a way to relieve tension because I'm in a dysregulated nervous system that's overrun with cortisol and adrenaline, right? Like people don't, they think that that's their sexuality. They think that that is their orgasm. It's not. That is not what that is. That is a pelvic trauma response and fear response. And it's an addiction. It's an addiction. It's people using some sort of endogenous mechanism to influence their neurochemistry, their physiology, and the state of regulation of their body in a way that's not dissimilar to other forms of addiction.
Mhm.
And it's not for free. Or like this Okay, so we're going to start to get into more practical territory, and there's some things that I want to frame gently because shaming people for their sexual behavior is dicey territory, but also there's a sense of just like I don't want to lie to people. And I want to stand for the fact that I think peak orgasm addiction is extremely limiting of people being able to access these different ranges of sexual possibility. And it's not for free for women also. Like your addiction to your vibrator may be the thing that is interfering with your ability to experience orgasms from intercourse or energetic orgasms or more pleasure and sensation. And this is true for guys too. You know, like so much of their, like it's, and also like this whole semen retention movement that's getting more and more popular isn't it either. So it's again, it's like let me get out of one box and get into another box.
Yeah.
And like who is this fucking guy telling women what they should do with their pussies? You know, like I get it. And also, you know, like this is real. It's very consequential and it's not something that I say based on um an idea, but rather from a ton of research and observation over years and years of really tending to what happens and how do people get access to these kinds of experiences and not. And how come when people have I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here because there's several things that are really important to lay out. One of them is if your body is not working properly, it's very difficult to access these sort of states, right?
Mhm.
And then the next thing is if you don't understand how to be in a state of regulation or like in a state of physiological calm and like real safety in intimacy with another person, it's very, very hard, if not impossible, to get to the places that we're talking about. So these are very fundamental things. Like there's things like cranial nerve dysfunction. The vagus nerve is a cranial nerve. And when people's cranial nerves are impinged, their ability to regulate into social safety is affected by something mechanical that's going on in their neck and head. So this is huge. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just introverted. I don't feel comfortable being with other people. It's like, no, your cranial nerves are impinged and you cannot experience social safety because the tone of your vagus nerve is not as adaptable as it would be otherwise. So you just feel like you have anxiety and don't feel comfortable being intimate with people, right? So this gets into this misunderstanding and these like identity like labels and typological conclusions that people have about like, oh, this is just how I am. When there's just so many fucking variables, I think it's irresponsible and limiting to do this. And this is culturally it's super wide. Like people are like, oh, I'm neurodivergent, I have ADD, I'm yada yada yada. And it's like that can be really empowering, but I think it's also extremely limiting and just puts people in the drama triangle and gets us away from taking responsibility for our lives. So these two foundational pieces is like we need to learn how to breathe and to get our diaphragm working properly. And yeah, I don't want to like fire hose too much here, so feel
Yeah,
free to cut
it's
me
so
off.
much.
There's
I almost feel
so
like
much
I'm
information.
curious. So I know you only help men. So what about the women that are listening that are like, I'm gonna need a
Yeah,
fucking checklist. Like, how do I even go? So
totally.
here, my experience, especially with women, and maybe that's because we only date women, but I have dated a lot of men in the past. Usually it's the women that do not know how to get out of their head and get into their body. They have no idea what embodied safety is. And
It's not just women who have. I would say
oh,
women
I'm
have this
sure.
issue far less than men, and I think it's trending. Like there's a huge movement of men that are really paying attention, or asking the right questions, and are investing in the right places for sure. So, ladies, there are more and more and more men that are like doing the real work and having the real conversation. So, hell yeah,
I
respect.
feel like we could spend an entire episode on just how to feel safe in your body. Like this is the number one problem. You
100%.
shouldn't pass number one if you
100%.
haven't
I
figured
mean,
out embodied safety.
absolutely. I mean,
What do you do? How do you get there?
yes. So, I mean, this is absolutely within my wheelhouse and something that we can break down over time. And I don't know when you're going to publish this episode, but I'm not 100% on this, but on a weekly basis, I get asked for recommendations and referrals to women's programs or women coaches or teachers or whatever. And I don't have a holistic recommendation. There's a lot of women that I really respect in their kind of respective domains, and based on personal context, let's say, I feel very comfortable making referrals to these badasses that I'm aware of, different colleagues and people that I know at a distance. But in terms of something that's like the equivalent of Men of Substance, where we really cover the kind of full gamut of all of this stuff, from like a very practical physiological and anatomical understanding to stuff that's about relationship harmony and taking responsibility and the nature of projection and how to work with trauma and sexual shame and all this sort of stuff. And then like really getting into just like what is even on the menu and what's worthwhile, and how do I begin to get to know myself outside of this really corrupted and weird culture that has just been the only thing that I've known up until now. And there's definitely like spiritual seekers in the programs that I run, but there's also just like regular fucking dudes, you know, like a lot of just like good old boys, you know, just normal guys. And it's not that complicated, but there is a lot of information. Like there's the program is, we do 2 sessions a week for 8 weeks, and that's like the tightest that I've been able to get this damn thing after playing with it for years. Is like it is really like 100-hour conversation to be like, this is what you need. And it's both things to know and things to do, because the work is very experiential. Like there are things that are more like breath work and kind of like simple solo exercises for getting to know your body, and this whole thing that I call the original erotic circuitry, which is about liberating the full orgasm reflex and getting, and there's things related to like, there's 3 physiologically distinct kinds of breathing. There, and this is well established. There are 3 physiologically distinct kinds of breathing. There's aerobic breathing, which is obviously for, you know, when you are doing sport or whatever, like when there's something that your body needs, an aerobic breathing. And then there's fear-based breathing, so that your body can essentially mobilize and protect itself when there's perceived threat to your safety. So this is like, you know, fight or flight type of breathing. And this is where the abdomen contracts and the diaphragm lifts and you breathe into your chest, triggers something in our neurology that produces cortisol and adrenaline. It's an adrenal response. It's a fear response. So when you tell a lot of people to take a deep breath, they're chest breathing, and it actually is inducing more dysregulation and fear. So the sense of being like, okay, just take a deep breath, that doesn't work. It's not that simple. We need to understand not only how to relax our belly and breathe into our belly and into our pelvic floor, but there's an additional layer where, because a lot of people have been using their diaphragm muscle to breathe a certain way their whole life, you need to release the diaphragm and kind of change the tone of that big umbrella shaped muscle that sits at the bottom of your rib cage, and learn how to relax your belly and breathe all the way down into your pelvic floor, so that when you do take a deep breath or you take a synchronized breath with a partner, you're not just going in the wrong direction. You know, there's people say all the time that like, when I tried to learn breath work and it just made me feel super anxious. It's like, yeah, that's because like we don't know these things, right? We don't know these things. And this is a tangent, but I'll just say it. A lot of these technologies, like a lot of these spiritual technologies from Eastern spiritual traditions, are not designed for the trauma load in the Western nervous system, the Western contemporary nervous system. It doesn't work. Like the same way that these shamanic practices from the Amazon are not even the same experience. If you go like drink the jungle juice or whatever, you're not even having the same experience as people that are from that culture. It's not even the same experience.
Wow.
Right. So like when we really look into the wisdom of these different traditions, there's a tremendous amount of relevant application, but it doesn't apply one to one. Because like you don't even have that kind of body. You don't come from that legacy. You don't come from that culture. There's all of this information that's like epigenetic, and it's our use patterns and our behavior and our consciousness and mindset. And it's is very deep, right? And it's like I have a real passion for like how do you distill, because like most people don't give a shit about this, like it's they only care as much as it's relevant to them having a good time and maybe supporting other people to have a good time. They don't care about the depth of it. And that's fine. And I do. And I have a passion for just being like, okay, what's the fastest, most efficient, most effective way to fix this fucking problem that is ruining your life? Right. And it's like, we could say like, oh, there's so many bigger problems in the world. And when I think about the landscape of the issues that I have, this isn't one of them. And it doesn't mean that if you didn't fix this, all of the other things in your world would be improved. I've just seen it time and time again. It's crazy, but it literally is like have sex so good it makes you a better person. Like it's like
Amen.
literally, right? It's like sex is a vehicle for realizing your potential. It is. We don't understand that. We think it's this release thing. It's this like primal thing, and then it's over. Like it's like a sneeze, or it's like you
Yep.
just have to do that thing, right?
10 minutes. It's 10
Sure.
minutes in and out. So, if you're listening to this, I think this is a good place for us to stop for now because
Okay.
I believe that my listeners need to figure out the embodied safety piece. So, what I would like for is I'm going to be putting links in the show notes below, to Rob's classes and Rob's group. So, men, if you're listening and you're like, this is a lot, but I definitely need to figure out how to regulate myself. I need to figure out how to feel safe in my body. I need to figure out what the hell my wife is actually asking for. Go see Rob. He is going to teach you all of these things in a program in a succinct way that you're not going to feel overwhelmed. In fact, you're going to feel empowered and you're going to feel fucking excited and you're going to bring new things into your bedroom that is going to make you be a better human. For the women that are listening, Rob can't be your coach because he coaches dudes. However, sounds like
I mean,
Rob has.
stick around. I think honestly, probably around New Year's, we're going to try to launch a program. That working title is Woman of Essence. So, Women
Oh,
of
fuck
Essence, we'll have
yes.
the Men of Substance and the Women of Essence, and we'll all have a good time.
Oh my God, that's
To be
exciting. Okay.
continued. It
If
is.
you need
Absolutely.
help now, though, Rob's going to give us a few links to some women that do the sort of coaching that he's doing. And we're
Sure.
going to put those in the links below because what we want to do is we want to make sure that you guys feel safe in your body. You have this embodied safety thing checked off so that then you can move into the meat and you can move into the exciting stuff. Because I bet we could have Rob on 5, 10, 15 times and have all these amazing conversations that you're going to understand then, that you're going to be ready for. Rob, is that fair?
Yeah, and I also like to really blend that. Like, you don't need to do something that's super dry for a long time before you get into the juicy stuff. Like, it can happen concurrently, it can happen simultaneously for sure. And I will just share one more plug for we made an assessment and it's very helpful. We call it the compass, and it helps people to really understand what are the actual building blocks of a great sex life. What are we even talking about? What, you know what I mean? Because it's like
Mhm.
it's hard to hit a target that you can't see. It's hard to achieve something that you don't even understand, right? So that the clarity piece of like what are we even talking about is very helpful, and that is step number one. And that can also reveal to people like, am I into this? Do I like this style? Is this something that I just intuitively feel drawn to, right? So I've tried to kind of lay this out in a way where people can get a taste and kind of ease their way in, or just come in and get what they need and leave if they're not here for the whole shebang. But usually what ends up happening is that like people start to just be like, okay, like my dick doesn't work, or like I don't understand women's orgasms or whatever. And then they're just like, okay, I'm gonna hang out for a while. Like this is there's just this sense of like, oh, I come too fast, or like
Yeah.
I need drugs to have erections and I'm only 45 or
Yep.
whatever. And or even 25, like that's real. So yeah, anyways, all of these solutions that like people look for, tips about like squirting and anal and deep throat and all this stuff that people are into, it's like we cover all of that too, but from a body-based approach. It's not this whole pornified thing. It doesn't involve force. It's like the body opens. Bodies like this, believe it or not. Our
Mhm.
bodies want this, that intuition, that feeling that people maybe rationalize away or don't take seriously, that like there's something more here. I don't know what it is, but I'm drawn to something. I don't feel fulfilled.
Mhm.
Listen to that. Listen to that. It will guide you somewhere. It will guide you somewhere. And the key is, if we are not having this kind of release type of orgasm, your horniness will resolve when you're in the real thing. And if you just keep blowing it out, and same for women, it's not for free. And when we start to get into how you can actually experience these ecstatic, global, durational, orgasmic experiences that can also be shared, if your body is used to grabbing at the peak, you cannot go there. It is almost impossible. I won't say it's impossible, but for regular people, it's basically impossible to have peak orgasms on a regular basis and be able to have the capacity to enter into these or access these other states of experience, because it touches an addiction thing in our body. It's just kind of like, oh, there's enough sexual charge here. I can just like squeeze a little bit. And right? Like this is thing of like, for men and women, there's this sense of just like, oh, I could just extract that little nice thing that I just
hit that high real fast.
Exactly,
right?
totally.
Yeah,
And this amazing teacher that she's such a badass. Someone was like, well, I don't feel that way. I like my vibrator. And she's like, well, maybe you're not ready to stop eating out of the dumpster of your sexuality. And that's fine if that's where you're at.
Okay, Rob, I want to have you come back
Yeah,
on before
perfect.
your January women's class launches, because
Okay.
a big portion of my audience is women. And I imagine that the women out there are fucking hungry. And we're like, we are ready to taste what's like, tell us what else there is, Like
Yes.
the women are hungry and we are ready. So come back on. Let's do something between November and December, something before the launch so that you can come and tell us what the course is going to be about. Can y'all tell I'm really excited? I'm like, maybe I need to come join this class.
Yeah.
And then men, if you guys will just go to the link below, go figure out what's going on with Rob, get signed up for his newsletter, follow on socials, whatever it is that Rob has for us. We'll put the links below. And man, go get emotional, go get regulated. Yummy. Go learn some new techniques. Go learn your body. I'm so excited for the men listening to really learn their body. Yeah, and we'll definitely have more conversations with Rob because this was super juicy. Thank you so
Beautiful.
much for being on.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you for listening to the Open Bedroom Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and give us a like and click subscribe below and stay up to date on all the new episodes that we release. If you have a topic that you'd really like more information on, leave us a comment below and we'll see what we can do. Feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and especially your partners. This is a great way to open up some amazing conversations. We'll see you next week.